Welcome to ESL Podcast's English Cafe, Episode 4. Welcome back to another edition of English Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff McQuillan, and you know where I'm from, the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, coming to you from the Center for Educational Development. And this is our fourth English Cafe show. We've gotten lots of good email and feedback, and I want to thank all of you. And I will be answering some more questions in this podcast as well. It's actually Tuesday evening here in Los Angeles. I'm recording this podcast at about 7 o'clock in the evening. And as I step over to the window and look out it, I can see some people who are making a movie or some sort of filming going on. As you know, Los Angeles is the home of Hollywood, but there are lots of other things that are filmed here. I'll sit back down. Lots of other things that are filmed here. TV commercials and so forth. And so no matter where you go in Los Angeles, you always see somebody making a movie or a television show or something. I'm not sure what show this is for or what they're filming for, but it's literally right outside of my house. Literally means actually. Literally, literally. And it's kind of unusual. I live in what we would call in English a cul-de-sac. And a cul-de-sac, it's actually three words with hyphens in between, C-U-L hyphen D-E hyphen S-A-C. A cul-de-sac, originally a French word, it in English, it means the end of a street where the street doesn't go any farther. And so usually the cul-de-sac is a circle, and you have houses around the circle, and that's where the street ends. Well, I live in a cul-de-sac, and so this is the, I think, second time in the last 6 months I've seen people making a movie outside my house. It's very strange. Some people might think that it's exciting, but actually, I would use the informal expression, it's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt, B-U-T-T. Your butt, of course, is what you sit on. The expression, a pain in the butt, means it causes you a lot of problems. And a pain in the butt is a nice way of putting it because they're always in your way and making noise and so forth. But that's part of living in this beautiful city. Now let's talk a little bit about some news and some things going on. Most people know American culture from what we would call popular culture like movies and television shows. Of course, as in all other countries, there is a radio culture here in the United States. People listen to the radio in their cars or when they're traveling. And one of the biggest disc jockeys, a disc jockey, D-I-S-C-J-O-C-K-E-Y, 2 words. We usually call them just a DJ. A disc jockey or a DJ is the person who works at a radio station, and he puts on the records. And another word for the record, or now we call them CDs, right? But we used to call them discs. And so the records were called discs. Anyway, one of the most famous disc jockeys in the United States who has a national show that's played on radio stations all over the country, is a man by the name of Howard Stern, Stern. And Howard Stern is famous for being what is called a shock jock. A shock, S-H-O-C-K, jock, J-O-C-K, 2 words. Well, jock is short for jockey, like disc jockey. And a shock jock is a disc jockey or a DJ who uses, let's say, not very good language, who talks about very controversial things. And that he's the most famous shock jock. Well, the interesting news this week is that he has moved from the regular radio stations to a satellite radio station. And the satellite radio station is you need a special receiver in order to hear it. And he is being paid a lot of money. I read in the paper he's being paid $500 million. That's $500 million US dollars, which is just it's just crazy. It's amazing. But that is a big change in the radio industry. And the radio industry in the U.S. is changing because there is now competition from satellite services as well as, of course, people downloading things like podcasts. Another bit of popular news from this week. I just read there's a man by the name of Blackwell, Mr. Blackwell. He's recently released, and every year he has a list of the worst dressed people of the year. Not the best dressed, but the worst dressed, people who wear the worst clothing in public. These, of course, are famous people, celebrities. And number 1 on the list was Britney Spears, who you probably have heard some of her songs. She's an American pop singer. He described Britney Spears as dressing like an over-the-hill Lolita. Well, there's 2 expressions there. Over the hill, H-I-L-L. When you say someone is over the hill, you mean that they are old. They're too old to do what they are doing. Some people say that you are over the hill for doing that particular activity. But generally, over the hill means that you are old. Well, Lolita, some of you may know, L-O-L-I-T-A, is the name of a character, a person, from a famous novel in English called Lolita by a author by the name of Nabokov, a European writer who wrote in English as well as other languages. And it's Lolita was her character was a young girl, but a very attractive young girl, 12, 13 years old. And, well, if you haven't read the story, I won't spoil it for you. To spoil something, S-P-O-I-L, means to tell someone the ending of a story or tell someone about a movie or any other sort of story in a book. So I won't spoil the book. It's very difficult, even for a native speaker, to read the book Lolita, because the English is there's lots of vocabulary, a very sophisticated, high-level vocabulary. Well, he described her as an over-the-hill Lolita, meaning she was She was trying to dress too young for her age. Well, that's Mr. Blackwell, his worst dress list. Now let's talk a little bit about technology. The big news today, Tuesday, here in the United States, is over an announcement by the head of Macintosh Computers about some new computers that Macintosh is coming out with. To come out means to release, to make available. And I think we talked before about a movie is coming out. It is going to be released. It's going to be made available. Well, Macintosh is coming out with some new computers, and so I'm excited to see what they are. I have a Macintosh on my computer. Or my computer, rather, is a Macintosh, although I also have a PC, a Windows machine, so I do both. Now let's turn to some questions. We had lots of questions this last couple of days, and I try to answer as many as I can by email, and I apologize if I take a few days to get back to you on email. I do try to answer all of the email that I receive. The first question comes from Stephen, or Stefan, I'm not sure how he pronounces his name, from Germany. And he wants to know what the difference is between a dove, D-O-V-E, and a pigeon, P-I-G-E-O-N. Well, a dove is a small white bird, and it is a type of pigeon. But when people use the word pigeon, they're usually talking about a bigger bird, usually one that you would find in a park. Pigeons are very popular in American parks. People feed them bread, little pieces of bread. And so technically a dove is a type of pigeon, so you could call a dove a pigeon. But people usually use that word dove, D-O-V-E, for a small white type of pigeon. Another question comes from Jean-Pierre from the island of Martinique in the Caribbean, or Caribbean. You can pronounce it either way in American English, Caribbean or Caribbean. The question is about the use of colored bracelets. Now, a bracelet, B-R-A-C-E-L-E-T, is what you wear around your arm, your wrist. And in the last, maybe year or so, it's become very popular for many organizations that are trying to get people to donate money to have to sell these little bracelets. And they're made usually of some sort of rubber or plastic. And you pay $1, $2, and there are different colors. And each organization selects its own color. And you wear them to show that you are supporting whatever organization this is. I think the most famous example is Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong, the American bicyclist who won the Tour de France, the famous bicycle race in France. Lance Armstrong was a cancer survivor, and he has an organization that sells these bracelets that you can give money to, and they will go towards that organization. It will be given to that organization. Final question comes from Alex in China. Alex wants to know the difference between the expression, do you get it, and did you get it? Very good question, Alex. When we say to someone, do you get it? First of all, to get it here means to understand. So do you get it means do you understand? We usually use that expression when you're explaining something to someone, and after you're done explaining it, you'll say, do you get it? Meaning, do you understand it? Did you get it in the past tense refers to asking whether you understood something in the past. So, for example, you go to a college classroom and you hear the professor talking about a subject. After class, you go to your friend who was there and you say, I didn't understand what the professor was saying. Did you get it? Meaning, did you understand it? So one is used in the present, in the immediate circumstance, do you get it? And another one, did you get it, is used for the past tense. So good question, Alex. That's all we have time for. We're a little over time, actually. So we'll see you again tomorrow on the regular ESL podcast. And, of course, we'll be back next week for another edition of the English Cafe. From Los Angeles, I'm Jeff McQuillan. Thanks for listening. ESL Podcast is a production of the Center for Educational Development in Los Angeles, California. This podcast is copyright 2005. No part of this podcast may be sold or redistributed without the express written permission of the Center for Educational Development.